hosting this event today. Before we get started with the panel, I just want to really quickly introduce of the organizations that are hosting this today, and give a couple thank yous. Thank you, of course, to you all for being here. This is really a great turnout for us for our panel, and we're really excited to host this today. And then, of course, a huge thank you to our co-host, the Cedars Union, who we partnered with for this event. And when discussing alternative art spaces, our programming chair, the brilliant Victoria Brill, thought of this was her immediate first thought was we have to partner with the Cedars Union and do it in the Bodecker building. So thank you to you all. This was really our first choice, of course. So the Cedars has been such an amazing supporter of our organization, Vignette, for years now. And the city of Dallas is so lucky to have this organization. They call themselves an arts incubator, but they're so much more than that. Their support is not just found in their 18-month incubator program for 14 to 18 artists, or in their artist memberships, which provide access to all the necessary tools for working artists, like 3D printers and things like that. Or even in the new space, woohoo, that this Bodecker building will become. But it's in their community outreach and support of other artist alternative spaces. So let's all get a hand for the CU. Thank you for everything today. So the origins of Texas Vignette really date back to 2016, which is around the time the CU was just starting to get off the ground. They had this building and a plan, but hadn't quite opened to the public. And I was a burgeoning art advisor and collection manager, and I was a little baby in the field. And the first thing I noticed while going out working with clients or going to fairs was the lack of representation for Texas artists, particularly Texas women artists, and especially in art fairs, which, as all of us know, is a huge area of the market for artists to sell at. So I had this crazy idea, why don't we start an art fair that would solely feature the work of Texas women artists? It would be submissions-based, so that artists who are either emerging or established could apply and be considered. And it would be juried by a different Texas woman curator each year, who would then make the selections and curate the fair in an exhibition-style setting, which would give kind of elevate the artwork in a way, and the work wouldn't be encumbered by gallery walls, and art collectors could connect directly with it. But it would also highlight the work of Texas women curators, so just another way that we can support the arts in that way. And since then, after only about 3 months of planning that first fair, after the success of it, we thought, what could we do in a whole year to plan? So the 6 other women who helped found it with me went out and we formed a nonprofit, Texas Vignette, and since then we've expanded to doing programming, annual or monthly programming, in addition to our annual fair. So this is one of many events that we have taken on over the course of the year, and Victoria has really taken it, and there she is, doing her strongman stance. She's just done an amazing job, so thank you all for being here and joining us today again. And the last thing I'm going to say, I'm going to do a little introduction of our moderator today, the amazing Jillian Wendel. Thank you, Jillian, and to all of our panelists, thank you. I'm so excited to hear about your spaces. Jillian is a curator, artist, and educator based out of Denton, who founded the Shed Show, which is an independent art exhibition space and project studio located in a shed in their backyard, which is very awesome. So everybody definitely get out there to check it. I know I will be there very soon. So I'll let everyone get started. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so nervous. There's just so many beautiful faces in the crowd, and I'm so happy that we all get to be here today. And I'm going to do a lot more listening than talking, because we have some fabulous people here today to discuss unconventional art spaces, and we've got a lot of different levels of experience too. So I think we'll get a wide variety. Like I said, I'm Jillian Wendel. I run the Shed Show, but I want to hear about everyone else. So I'm going to jump straight into our questions. Our first one, I just would love for us to go around, give an introduction of yourself, provide some background on you personally, the space that you operate, and then how you practice in that space.
Is it me? Do I go first? My name is Ryan Semegran. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a performance artist, sculptor, multimedia artist, as well as an independent curator. I serve as the curatorial assistant at the Dallas Contemporary as well. My project space is called 2 Bed 1 Bath, and it's in my apartment. I live in a 800 square foot apartment in Oak Cliff, Texas, and I put on exhibitions once a month, twice a month, sometimes none at all. I started my space in, I've thought about having a space in my living situation for a long time, but I started putting on shows in January of this year. So 2 Bed 1 Bath is relatively new, and yeah. There you go.
Hey everybody. My name is Fernando Alvarez. I am a co-founder of Easyside, which is a 501c3 nonprofit in East Fort Worth. It has a dual mission of providing artist resources to emerging artists in our area, but also has the mission that sets us apart from other nonprofits, which is fighting, advocating for food equity in East Fort Worth. We do that through many food programs, but primarily through partnership with local growers and food banks like Tarrant Area Food Bank and Opal Leaf Farms. And we stock a food pantry with free veggies, sometimes dry goods. So every other week, anybody can come into our door and get free food if they need it. Outside of that, I'm an artist myself. I've been in North Texas for half of my life at this point, after moving from Tegucigalpa, Honduras. I've worn many hats here in DFW since then, but currently I am the Assistant Curator of Education at the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth.
Hey everybody, I'm Brent. I run a space called Cheerleader. That's about 5 minutes that direction. Let's see, I came back here 3.5 years ago after 18 years in New York. I did grow up here, but I left in 2001 after getting a BFA at North Texas. One reason I did want to come back here was I saw a need for another artist-run space. I ran 2 in New York, the first one in Rockaway Beach in Queens. It just started as a way to help rebuild my neighborhood after Hurricane Sandy, and I ended up falling in love with curating and bringing people together around art and really creating a day. That's what it turned into. I liked, oh, people can go to the beach, they can get some food, a drink, come to an art show, and I see my spaces more in that, like I'm creating an event. If people have been to my space now, there's a big area to hang out outside. I really like bringing people together. Yeah, looking forward to this.
Hi. Hi, my name is Tessa Granowski. I run a space here in Dallas called Nature of Things. It is a bit of a nomadic curatorial project at this point. I'm on my 5th show and 5th space, and opened last April. And I am originally from Dallas, and I just moved back also from New York and also sort of Montana, and had a gallery in those 2 places, but this isn't a new project. It's kind of bringing together emerging contemporary artists and Texas history and books and film, and trying to find a lot of different access points for people to be able to engage with art and art spaces. So yeah, that's all I got.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for the introductions. Something that struck out to me with everything that we all just discussed is 3 big things: space, experience, and the people that are in that, so the community. And I want to hear a bit more about some of the freedoms and challenges of running a project space, especially given like what is the size of your team? Are you the team as an individual? And how an unconventional space provides certain freedoms. You don't have to have so much red tape, and then the challenges that also come with that much freedom.
I have all the microphones. So I'll go. It's not working. Okay, sorry. We'll get better at this. Freedoms, I mean, yeah, it feels really like every time I'm coming up with a new show, the possibilities seem pretty endless. Just because I'm a team of one right now. So it's a lot of time, both in my head, but out exploring the world, you know, doing studio visits all the time. And limitations being that I am one person, so, you know, I only have so much energy, so many things I can do in a day, so sometimes it really is me feeling like, whew, I wish I could clone myself or afford some extra help. That being said, I do have a lot of beautiful angel people who come into my life and help me out free of charge, and just like are believers in the space. So yeah, lots of freedoms, especially even schedule-wise. Like I think doing 4 shows a year is pretty light programming considering a normal gallery space, but yeah, for like one person, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely like the freedom of being able to curate whatever I want, not having to talk to anybody about it. My first space that was in New York, as I said, I had a business partner and we were quite magical together. And it was, we came from such different places that we found this, I don't know, when we agreed on something, it just really worked. And that was really nice to split the workload. She did all the computer stuff. I just worked in the gallery, did all the hanging. But also, there were so many other artists I wanted to show that she wasn't interested in, and I actually just made a list. I've had an ongoing list for over, I don't know, maybe 2 decades of artists I like. So once I was on my own, I'm like, oh, I can show whatever I want. But then, yeah, as Tessa said, I'm a one-man show. I even will try to mislead people on Instagram and say we, make it seem like I'm a bigger deal, but it is just me. It's definitely a little exhausting. You know, I'm luckily busy with my own art career. I teach at UTA, so I feel like I'm juggling 3 part-time jobs, and I don't know, I think I have the space for 2, but yeah, I'm a little disappointed when I read through the questions. A lot of my response had to do with money, but yeah, maybe I'll save that for the next one.
Yeah, we're not a one-man show, but I mean, it does feel like it at times in that we started out of grad school with my grad cohort, or a few members of it, Adriana Touch and Corey Thompson, and then Corey Thompson's partner, John Paul Thompson. So from the ground up, we were kind of this satellite space, what's it called, just 4 people trying to piece something together, and bandwidth was a challenge early on and continues to be. Obviously, as we've grown and we've included more studio members in our program, we've since operated in a more co-opt fashion where everybody chips in, and that's been a blessing, really. But as far as the freedoms go, I think one of the main reasons why we started Easyside is because out of grad school we recognized that DFW, even relative to other big cities, was hyper commercial in its attitude, and it didn't have space for a lot of our biases, like non-conventional or non-normative, experimental, non-commercial artists. And that's stuff that we wanted to see more of too. So just by existing outside of the commercial model, not being this privately owned gallery, or we can be this nonprofit, we kind of set our own rules, and that way, like, our fundraising is completely tied to our efforts rather than having to pivot or compromise our intentions with what we show in order to keep the lights on. So in that sense, that freedom's really been the nicest thing, in that we just get to show what we find exciting and not have to worry about will this show sell or not?
So Two Bed, One Bath is a two-person project. Me and my co-founder, Cassidy Steins, who unfortunately could not be here today because she's in Mexico. Very jealous. But we met in college. She was one of the first people that I met in college. And we have lived together for many, many years and have lived in different like quintessential Denton houses that are like a million years old and have weird doorknobs and, you know, are kind of falling apart, but in like the best way possible. And when we first lived together, we were always like, we should just, you know, have an open studio. She's a printmaker. I am a, you know, like I said earlier, a sculptor and a performance artist. And so, I don't know, it felt like something that we could do as two artists living together. And it just never really came about. I graduated a little bit later than she did, and so we split off in our lives, and then ended up coming back together again. Hello, there we go. And when we moved back in together, we were like, finally, we can like actually like put on shows. We can actually do something with our space. We didn't live with another person. We lived with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and you know. Now that we live just the two of us, we could finally do it and do it on our own terms. I've been working in a nonprofit museum all through college, and so I'm very familiar with the like process of showing works curatorially in institutions, but I've never had the freedom to do it just because I wanted to, and I don't have to like look to somebody or a group of people and try to like explain the validity of why I want to show this artist or these artists. I don't have to explain it to anybody because I can just present it and have it be what it is. And people, I don't know, have been receptive to that. Yeah, that's the end of my sentence.
Thank you all so much for your responses. I think there's a lot of genuine attitudes when running spaces like this. There's a lot of honesty and transparency and sort of the limitations and freedoms. I wanted to add also, because we were getting around to like sort of the exhaustion that comes with this job, and if you don't have an established team, you kind of have like those like angels that help you out on occasion. You know, it's kind of a special act of mutual aid to put together an art show, especially with friends and other artists. I work as a gallery assistant at 1226 part-time, and I also work with Ryan at Dallas Contemporary, visitor services and some communications things, do freelance writing on the side, kind of bounce around to so many different things. I'm very blessed though to have like a very close circle of friends that are all artists, and the Shed Show is actually developing a team of people that are helping with things like our website and our social advocacy initiatives of circulating social resources. But yeah, it is a very exhausting job, but it feels like, I mean, what else are we supposed to, like this is what we're supposed to do. Like, it's not something that we can just turn off. I knew when I started Shed Show, I always wanted to run a project space, and it's now becoming a way of being and a way of living that is so fully in line with who I feel I am as an individual. And it's very magical. It's just a very insane feeling. But getting around to some of the things I heard while y'all were giving your responses, financial side of things. I think we all probably have very different responses for this. I'll start with mine. So the Shed Show is in my backyard. It's in a 9 by 12 foot gable roof shed. I pay rent with my roommate Magdalena Tumba, who is our social advocacy correspondent and sort of co-steward of the show, helps me host. We throw shows together occasionally, and we curate together as well. But you know, our overhead is the rent that we pay, and I actually did the math, and if you squeeze in the square footage of the shed, not including the backyard, I think it's like $80 a month. And that is pretty incredible for a space. Also, the Shed Show does not take any proceeds from art sales. We don't have ticketed like entries. we like kind of take donations, but I just love people to come and have a good experience and not feel like there's any barriers to entry. And we're in a very privileged position where we have the capacity to do that because we're on a residential property in Denton, very underground. But yeah, I'd love to hear more about like sort of the financial side of things, because I know like the further along this line we get, like y'all work with more like nationally recognized artists that are further away. And I know closer on this end, there's a lot more local. But yeah, I'd just love to hear about that side of things, the money.
Yeah, I can go first. I got the mic, but Two Bed One Bath doesn't make any money from the shows that we put on. It's strictly just a project space. Sales do happen, but I don't do them. Most of the time it's the artist and whoever is interested. They're like, can I buy this? And the artist is like, sure. So I don't make any money off of the space. And I pay the rent because I have to, because I live there. So it's, I think, something that has really informed my practice, along with being a performance artist and working in nonprofits, is that I know that the barrier of entry to contemporary arts is really high. Like if you aren't attending like a contemporary art space that's a nonprofit that is like non-ticketed, or sorry, if you have to pay to go into contemporary spaces, it can be up to like $20, $25, $30 sometimes. And I think working in nonprofits has really informed my idea of making accessible art spaces available to people. And, you know, I think the most vulnerable place to view art is in somebody's home. And so, sorry, what was the question again? I think I started rambling, but.
No, that was perfect. Yeah. We're just talking about the monies of it all, but we're in a similar situation where it's like, we live in these spaces, so we have to like make it work. And that's why we have like, I mean, we all have these jobs outside of what we do, but yeah.
Oh yeah, and then something that I did want to say too is that my father's a novelist and has been writing all of his life and has had a day job all of his life as well. Shout out to Scott, he's the webmaster at the Texas Lottery. But he writes novels and has been writing novels on his lunch break for as long as I have been alive. And something that he's always like told me as from like one creative to another is to have your day job to make money, and then your creative pursuits can come from that money, and you can be fulfilled in that way. And so that's something that I've always kept with me, and something that I always think about with Two Bed One Bath.
Yeah, we differ. There we go. We differ a little bit in that.
We can pass around this guy. This guy works.
Yeah, let's do that.
There you go.
Here you go. You can keep that.
Angled up.
All right. We differ a little bit from y'all in that we're a nonprofit, so we have to operate in a certain way with the state. So all of our money and fundraising has to be raised and spent serving our mission, which has been tricky just because the biggest way to fundraise for an organization like us is through grants, but you need to have like normally 3 years of an experience to qualify for most grants that would be helpful to us, and we just crossed that threshold just a few months ago. So up until that point, so much of it has been, I mean, I've lost track of how much money I've spent on Easyside out of pocket. We've structured things in a way to where our studio member fees essentially pay our lease, so everything that we fundraise goes to our programmings after that. And but I'm really proud with what we've been able to do, considering how scrappy we've been. We have a small but growing donor base, but we always need more donations, so that's my shameless plug today. Yeah, and I will say that despite how scrappy we have been, we're an organization that has really prioritized and been assertive of making sure the artist comes first. So even with how small we operate, we prioritize making sure that whoever we work with has travel money, shipping money, honorariums. So that's another thing that I'd say would differentiate us from other art spaces, that we're really prioritizing that first.
Yeah, that's true. I got paid for my first time I ever got paid for curating was with Easyside. I got a small.
Oh yeah, here, let me have the one that.
Is this one working? Is this one working?
This one,
This is the worst comedy bit.
I know.
Is this working? There we go. I'm also open to donations. I've always been motivated by the money aspect. I've always enjoyed the hustle and trying to figure it out. I think it's a healthy fear that just keeps me going. When I was thinking about moving back here, I was really excited because I saw, most of my family is here, and I would come back and visit once or twice a year, and I saw these, to me, interesting, forgotten corners of Dallas. And I've always been inspired by architecture and, space in general. I'm like, I want to curate there. And I was so excited to come back here and get that going. It took me a few years, but I was calling a lot of places and no one wanted to make a deal with me. They're like 12-month, 2-year lease only. I'm like, why is this easier in New York, where I could rent something for the summer for $500 and I would fix it up and put in lights and build walls, and I was able to get by in New York and no one wanted to make a deal with me here. So eventually I've had my building. It's an 800 square foot metal shed. It feels like you're 100 miles away after 4 o'clock when Steel Boss, my neighbor, leaves, and there's not I-beams being moved around on forklifts. And yeah, I rented that 3 years ago as my studio for 2 years, and since I couldn't find a good deal in other spaces, I realized I'm in the best space. And I would always open these big barn doors and work, making my work with these doors open. People would come by, my mini cats that have become the mascots of the gallery, and I just love the indoor-outdoor flow. I'm like, this is where my gallery's supposed to go. And I carved out the front 300 square feet, and my studio, which is mostly storage right now, is in the back. And I pay $150 for this metal shed, but there's no bathroom, there's no AC, there's no heat, there's a little hose outside my building, and there's an alley. I go pee there, and there's a gas station up the road if someone else needs a proper bathroom. But I love how raw it is, and lots of people don't believe me. They ask for the bathroom, and I'm like, no, it's nothing behind my wall. But $150, I could afford that. You might, I don't know, maybe spend that over a weekend or something. And I pay electric, that's like $15 every 2 months or something. So I'm like, okay, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to sell anything. And yeah, I have been showing people from New York, the show that's up now. Joshua Saunders lives off the coast of Washington State. So I make deals with my artists. I'm like, if you drive the work here, I will drive it back to you. And I go back to New York a few times a year. I still have a little place up by Albany, so I made deals with all my New York artists. I'm like, if you mail me your work, I will bring it back to you or ship it back to you.
I think of all the spaces, Jill had noted that maybe I'm the most kind of commercially leaning. The plan was when I moved back here, I was going to be in a rent-free situation in a family house. That was the setup, and then the city of Dallas was like, no, you cannot, you need to get this impossible to obtain permit. So then I had to get more creative, and I was like, okay, where can I kind of move around where I don't have to sign a year lease or 2-year lease? And yeah, it took a lot of talking to people, a lot of getting creative. I feel like at every turn I kind of have to get creative with money stuff, and I'm doing 3 art fairs in the next month, which is a little bit, both energy-wise but also financially. Putting a lot, investing, making a gamble on trying to become more financially solvent, and yeah, I kind of just like having short-term spaces that I'm renting has been a little bit of my plan of saying, you know, or even in my current space, I chose it a little bit because I was like, Commerce Street and Deep Ellum is completely ripped up. Maybe they'll give me a deal. I was like, maybe I won't even have sidewalk access, but it'll be a good space when people get inside. Like, I've just had to just be like, where can I kind of like find the spaces that are a little bit, on the edges of town, a little bit, forgotten spaces, so that if I'm having to pay rent, something can come down in that. Only doing kind of like short-term stuff so that I can, retreat for 4 months and figure out my next plan, and hopefully the art fairs go well, who knows, but that's about it.
Amazing, yeah. Like I said at the beginning, like we have a lot of like variety and diversity in terms of like sort of levels that these spaces are all at. Something that Fernando said and something that I've been hearing that I think about a lot is sort of the scrappy adaptability of these spaces. Like I said earlier, we have such a strong desire to make it happen, we will make it happen. And like compromising comes in like lack of sleep, you kind of compromise on like not getting rest or just extending more than you can to make it happen, but it's because you care so deeply. And I think that adaptability, even with Topless at Rockaway Beach, like starting that space up after a hurricane, like you needed to like process and create something that brought back joy to something that was so devastating. And I think that adaptability, scrappiness, like builds resilience in an art space, and that spreads like wildfire, like throughout your communities. I also love what you said about like the indoor-outdoor experience. The shed, like I have a huge backyard, and like people just kind of scatter all over it and have like their own little microcosms of moments. And then they're in the shed talking about the art, and then they're like going to the beer fridge. And it's very fun, and it's a good experience. You don't feel like you're really trapped by these like massive white walls and that you have to have like a proper etiquette or wear a mask to like show up. You can kind of just show up in your authentic, genuine self. And I think that's very valuable. And I'm going to segue that into, I want to have this conversation about commercial and non-commercial. I don't want it to be like versus, because I don't think that's helpful, but sort of commercial and non-commercial, and sort of feelings, thoughts, energies around that, because it's all still unconventional. But yeah.
I guess our model right now of commercial art spaces kind of has the look of, the white cube. And so as soon as you go off of that path, people start to kind of like feel everything differently, look at the art differently, and it probably comes off more as a non-commercial space. And I think I like leaning into that. I like the fact that art should be in any space. It's like something we're all capable of doing and looking at, and all should have fully integrated into our lives anyways. And so I think the commercial galleries, like traditionally, it just like, I personally think that it just doesn't have to look like that to be a commercial space. Like I still want to be a commercial space. I want to sell art because I want to pay artists. I want to create like a sustainable model that this little like machine can keep going. It doesn't have to be grand. I'm not trying to make a lot of money off of it, but I do want something that's sustainable. And so being able to kind of like toe that line of something that, because it doesn't feel so commercial, maybe other people are still able to access it. You're not walking into a space that's like ultra quiet, like so well lit, you're gonna pass out. Like I've almost passed out in an art space that was so white because I was like, I don't know where the ground is in the ceiling. And it's like, to me, it's really uncomfortable. And I think, I love that combination and feeling both like non-commercial, but kind of secretly being a commercial space. I don't know if that answers it.
Is this working? Yes, thank you. Yeah, commercial space really has nothing to do with the space. I mean, the white box is a white box, so it disappears and you're just left with the art. And I will always show in those spaces. I like being part of that world. I also need money and people buy stuff there. But these spaces, I mean, I really, after looking at these for 20 years, I'm pretty bored with them. So I curate shows that, you know, I wish people would offer me. I think about like, I want to show at a place called Cheerleader, or I want to show at this place with this raw wall and, yeah, but the word that came to mind was, you know, there's a symbiotic relationship. Like if some people, you know, project space, artist space, alternative space, unconventional, like it wouldn't be alternative if there wasn't the original thing that we're the alternate to. So I do, yeah, I'm kind of inspired to be the alternative and kind of go against them and, not in a competitive way, but you know, I really like that, you know, even up here, we're like all in different lanes, but everybody's headed in the same direction. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak generally, and I promise it isn't adversarial. Like I really respect what, hello, yeah, let's do that one.
It doesn't like you.
Doesn't like me. No, I think when you have to operate in a commercial way, you're beholden to that structure where you just have to make compromises sometimes, or sometimes one artist on your roster will do really well, so all of a sudden they're your artist that you're gonna push, right? And that's great, but I feel like sometimes that can be a slippery slope and you lose the plot where the art should come first and the artist should come first. So I feel like that's the main difference, is that since we don't have to operate under that same kind of capitalist attitude, like we can quite literally just focus on the art first and nothing else. But yeah, I think that's just reaffirming what I said earlier. But I'm really glad that you brought up that, I mean, you're not shying away from the fact that you're trying to keep it sustainable and you have to sell work too, but I think that's the difference, is that you're doing the work to make sure that the art comes first, your interests come first, and that passion is at the forefront of the space and not the other way around.
I think when I think about the commercial aspect of selling art, I personally have never been drawn to that. I don't think that I could be a gallerist in the traditional sense of the work is here because it's going to be bought by somebody. I think that a lot of my curatorial practices are rooted in my experience as a performance artist, where a lot of the time galleries don't want to show my work because I can't really sell it. I'm not Marina Abramovich, you know, like nobody wants to buy like a VHS tape of my performance to have on their shelf and not show anybody, you know? And so you have to like learn that the hard way. And by learning that, I gained, you know, the confidence to just be like, well, I'm gonna have a performance here in this like random space and record it or invite people to come see it. And if they come see it, they see it. And if they don't, they don't. And it like goes off into the ether. And I think that I feel very similarly about my curatorial projects. I don't want to limit myself to work that can only be sold. I think there are a lot of untapped artists out there that make weird as fuck work, and I want to show it. Yeah, freaky work. And I think that there's validity in showing those work in gallery spaces, and I don't want them to feel like they are limited by if they're going to sell their work or not. And so that's the, you know, the basis of 2 Bed 1 Bath. If something sells, then it sells, but I don't want to have to be the one to do it. And it really is just a platform to expose the artists that I really care about to people that I'm close with, people that I'm not close with. just to put it out there,
I mean, if I just keep that one on that side.
I don't know if everyone can see this. I
I'll take
take
that
like
one.
so many notes, so I'm like deeply in the weeds and interested in everyone's responses from like a million different angles. I feel like we could all just like start a seminar right now about like how do you even do this, like how do these DIY spaces run. But speaking on the like commercial side of things, because I work in a commercial art gallery and I want to talk more about logistics side of things of running these spaces. I am incredibly grateful to my job at 1226 because of the skills that I've learned. I've learned how to do administrative things. I've learned what shipping looks like, what it looks like to reset a gallery, install, deinstall, write press releases, and all of those skills. I don't know if I'd come about them in the same way if I just tried to start an unconventional art space with the knowledge I had from school. I needed real world experience and a way to alter the sort of commercial model, but take it in the same way I'm doing it with the non-commercial model, which I think it imbues more value into the DIY space to show that level of care, that level of like administrative attention to get proper language out is incredibly valuable. And I know that like Ryan has the same experience, like with all of we're all putting out like quality things that are not just sort of like slapdash. There's a lot of thinking that goes into it, a lot of skills behind it, very like interdisciplinary skills. You don't just have like one thing and that's what like gets you there. You have all these things. But something that Brent, you mentioned that has been very inspiring to me, like unrealized ideas, like sort of looking at a space, especially when it's unconventional, and like thinking of ideas that you couldn't have thought of if you were just given a white wall or given a traditional space. Like when you're given something that has like extra fixtures and adornments, like the Bodecker is so fabulous. I highly recommend, if y'all haven't explored this building, to come back so at another time and do. There's like little hiding holes and there's like interesting moments to like interact with the building, and as like a viewer of art, when you can like constantly keep finding things in the environment around you and you're like, is that art? Is that not art? I think that that's an incredible experience. And not to take away from the commercial side of things, the white wall helps the environment disappear so you can focus on the art, but sometimes I like to be overwhelmed and put into a space where I am like on an adventure of discovery that's very different than like going into a traditional space. But yes, in terms of logistics, I have this belief that anyone can start a space. I think that you can start a space anywhere. It can be of literally any scale. I think everyone has these skills within them to start doing something. So I kind of want us to just like offer maybe some like tips or things that help y'all in running your spaces that are accessible, because right now there's a big wave and trend in unconventional art spaces in North Texas, and it didn't just happen by accident. Like it happened because of this network of creatives who all have a similar mission. And I just want to invigorate all of us. So, yeah.
I think that the mindset that you have to have in order to start a space is just fucking, I'm gonna do it.
Yep.
And there's really like nothing that can hold you back from putting art up in spaces. I mean, other than like the police, I guess, like somebody like coming to bring you down and take you on the work. But like I said, I've had this idea of putting art up in my living space since I was in college, and I think it was just literally a matter of I have to like get up off my couch, and I have nails, and like I know like I can throw a rock and know like hit an artist in this general vicinity. If I asked somebody that would be down to like show their work in a space, and with the caveat that like I'm not this is not a traditional gallery. If you are okay in showing your work in my living room, then let's do it. I think it's a symbiotic relationship with the artist, where they have to trust you to represent their work in a way that makes them feel good, and then you have to trust the artists to let you kind of do your thing. And yeah, it's really just kind of, you can do it. If you have nails and you got spackle to like cover it up afterwards, then you can put up art literally anywhere. I've thought about putting up shows along the I don't know if you've been in the back roads of the design district, but there's empty plots of land that have fences that you could put art on if you wanted to. Yeah. And Lucia, for instance, she's in the crowd, hello. But she has the Fuel Commission where she'll have artists put artworks on her the cover for her,
cap,
the gas cover cap. I think that is, I don't know, it's so cool, and you can just really do it anywhere. I'm not sure if that's great advice, but.
My advice is specifically for if you're wanting to start something with other people. It's also gonna be really corny, but I think kindness and humility goes an incredibly long way. It's often just not present in a lot of spaces, and I feel like we've really benefited from it in starting it with dear friends, and then we were really strategic in the cohort of studio members we brought in, that not only they reflected our biases as far as the kind of artists we wanted representing Easyside, but also artists that were kind and had similar values, because we recognize that, we're still in our salad days, and we feel like we're still gonna have lots of ups and downs, lots of missteps, and those moments are so much easier when you have people around you that understand the difficulty and the struggle and are there to support you rather than point fingers. So yeah, that would be my main tip.
Yeah, I like the way you posed that question, Jill. Also, there was a gallery project called Sinkhole. This guy in Baltimore was just hanging artwork on fences. And I know he moved to New York. I don't know if that's still going, but I'm always inspired by these alternative ways of displaying work. There was someone who was doing shows on a clothesline in Ridgewood for a little while. But to speak to logistics, I think it's so important, even though I'm a project space, my attention to detail is equal to a commercial gallery. And, I'm in my 5th show now. We have a catalog. I'm always make sure the checklist is out and there's a press release, and, I take it very seriously. I owe it to the artist, if their work is worth it. And, I am definitely now 50% gallerist, 50% artist. It has moved in the direction of gallerist every time I open a space. I used to be 30% gallerist, 70% artist, 10 years ago. But to speak to logistics, my day jobs in New York City for 10 years were working at the galleries in Chelsea. I worked for Marianne Boesky Gallery for 2 years. Did I just lose the mic? I guess no one likes Marianne Boesky Gallery.
Oh, this one works now.
Yeah. Hello, nothing. There we go. Yeah, 1 week after, is this out? There we go. 1 week after I finished grad school at SVA in New York, I started working for Marianne Boesky Gallery. And that was 60, 70 hour weeks for 2 years. It was the best rounding out to my education, probably better than 2 years at SVA. Yeah, I spent 10 years working in the galleries in New York until I could just work for myself, but those skills I learned, that helped me run my space. Yeah, I never even thought I would curate a show. I just realized after being in Rockaway for a year that people weren't coming back to their storefronts, and I knew I had the skills to hang a show and amateur carpentry skills, and no, I'm still doing that. I really love hanging shows and being alone in a gallery with the work. That for me is just a real gift from artists to let me do that, but I feel that way with my own work. I just want to be alone in the space. It's a spiritual experience for me, and I want to share that with other people. Your turn.
I agree with kind of what everybody's been saying, and especially what Brent was saying about even in being a, sort of alternative, unconventional space, it's still really important to take it all very seriously and to still have the checklist, to still have that communication there about why is this here? I'm not trying to bring you in and trick you and make you feel uncomfortable and there's no words and like you still gotta, and I take all the documentation very seriously, which that's another very challenging thing when you don't have a white wall space. It's like, man, I think my photographer kind of fired me on this current show. He was like, there's 6 types of light coming in that space. I have no way of evening the light in these photos. So, but giving a lot of attention and seriousness, just as much as a commercial space would to that. And also like Brent, I worked in, my first sort of art world job was at Gagosian, and so I kind of saw how that giant ship runs, and that was a really good learning experience and something that I said, I don't want this, this is not a goal of mine. These people are kind of evil, sorry if that's on the record. And then I actually worked in logistics, the actual shipping and installation for 5 years, which also is so good for a gallery, no matter what size, to know how to do, everything. It's so good for artists to remember, if you make something, it should be able to fit through the door, if you're making it out of material that melts in a certain heat, think about that. Those are all just good considerations and things that I really enjoy. I have a logistics side of my brain. I really like doing all the organization, and there's so many lists going on in my head that I never even write down, and there's always things to complete on that, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of backend stuff. And I constantly, with every shed show, because at this point, we're kind of running a show every month, it looks like, and it wasn't totally intentional. We just wrapped up Fernando's show, I Heard Sounds from Heaven, I Heard Sounds from Hell, which was a month-long run. And we were gonna have a tiny break for installing a show that's opening on April 25th with Caleb Lee and Joseph Schuler called Place Planning Here and There. But if y'all know about the issue of censorship at the University of North Texas in Denton right now regarding the cancellation of Victor Quinonez's exhibition, many UNT students are standing in solidarity with Victor by pulling their exhibitions from the institution and presenting them with unconventional artist-run spaces who don't have the limitations or the fear of showing work that speaks against social atrocities that are happening in this nation and all over the world right now. Victor's work speaks directly to ICE and what ICE is doing and affecting all of the communities in this nation and affecting the communities that are coming into this nation. So very heinous on UNT. It's awful. If you look it up, there's nationally recognized articles that speak to it, voices from Denton speaking to it. There's a lot of boots on the ground that are keeping eyes on these administrators and people who have the power and holding them accountable or trying to make this. But tonight, actually, the Shed Show is having an opening reception for Carla Hughes. They are an MFA student at UNT, presenting their thesis exhibition through the Shed Show. And speaking, I don't want to speak for Carla, but just from our interactions, we were in our masters together at certain points. We were in the same research classes and got to know each other a little bit. And when news hit about Victor and that students were looking for other spaces, I immediately was like, I can squeeze in. We can make it happen for at least one person, if not more. I know Ryan is doing the same thing with 2 Bed 1 Bath, because it's not just the MFA students, but it's also the senior students that also want to stand in solidarity and presenting their thesis shows in different locations as well. The Eclectica and Irving is doing stuff. Anna Street Studios, another sort of gallery project space in Denton run by Susan Seaborn, is also doing it. 4 Down, which is a skate park exhibition space. 10 Gallery. I might be forgetting some, but the sort of movement that everyone came with to be we're going to support this because our spaces are not going to limit what you can present. We're not going to censor what you can present. And I felt like I needed to speak to that because I think that's kind of the whole justification. We're going to make these shows happen by any scrappy way that we can. because institutions of power will make it not happen. And so we have to make it happen. But yeah, I know we're getting like close to an hour, I think, and I'm not sure how to like finish these things off, but I want to like put this back on the panel if y'all have any kind of closing thoughts. And then I don't know how Vignette feels about this. I don't know how, do y'all questions? Okay, I feel like down to like take some questions from the crowd. Okay, we got a resounding yes from that. But yeah, any final remarks from panelists before we open up the floor to questions?
Support us.
Yeah.
Support us. Okay.
But I want to thank everyone for being here. I hope you enjoyed this, and especially thank our panelists. Everybody be sure to check out each of these spaces ASAP as soon as you can get out there. I also want to thank the Cedars again for being such an amazing co-host. And I do want to give a shout out to the Eugene McDermott Foundation, whose support of both Texas Vignette and the CU has been a big part of this programming and many more programming for both organizations in the future. And thank you, everybody.